Compliance risk is the likelihood that an organization will violate applicable laws, regulations, industry standards, or internal policies and procedures. It results from non-compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, resulting in adverse financial, legal, reputational, and operational outcomes. Compliance risk can impact businesses in a variety of industries and sectors, and its management is essential for sustaining an organization's integrity, ethical practices, and legal compliance. Compliance risk examples can vary depending on the industry and the applicable regulations. Here are some specific examples. Financial industry. Compliance with anti-money laundering regulations. Banks and financial institutions must abide by regulations designed to prevent money laundering and terrorist financing. Failure to employ efficient AML procedures may result in severe penalties, reputational harm, and legal repercussions. Know your customer compliance. In order to prevent fraud, identity theft, and illegal activities, financial institutions must verify the identity of their consumers. Inadequate Know Your Customer procedures can result in regulatory fines and an increased risk of financial offenses. Healthcare industry. Compliance with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, requires healthcare providers, insurers, and business associates to safeguard patient health information and adhere to HIPAA's privacy and security requirements. Breach of patient confidentiality or failure to implement sufficient safeguards can result in legal liability and reputational damage. Compliance with clinical trials and research. Organizations conducting clinical trials and research must abide by ethical standards, data protection regulations, and informed consent protocols. Non-compliance can result in legal penalties, the loss of research grants, and reputational harm to the organization. Information technology industry. Companies handling sensitive customer data, such as confidential information and financial records, must adhere to data protection and privacy regulations, such as the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, and the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. Non-compliance may result in hefty fines, legal action, and the loss of consumer confidence. Compliance with software licensing and intellectual property. Organizations must assure the correct licensing and use of software applications, as well as respect intellectual property rights. Non-compliance with licensing agreements or copyright laws can result in legal disputes, monetary fines, and reputational harm. Environmental industry. Environmental regulations compliance. Businesses engaged in activities that influence the environment, such as manufacturing, energy production, or waste disposal, must comply with environmental regulations and acquire the necessary permits. Non-compliance can result in fines, legal action, environmental and public health damage, and legal action. Employment practice. Employers must comply with minimum wage, overtime, and employee classification regulations. Infractions can result in lawsuits, back wages, penalties, and reputational harm to the organization. Organizations must adhere to anti-discrimination and equal opportunity laws to ensure that employees and job applicants are treated fairly. Failure to comply may result in lawsuits, monetary penalties, and reputational harm to the organization. These are only a handful of examples of compliance concerns across industries. Organizations must effectively identify, assess, and manage compliance risks by implementing robust compliance programs, conducting regular audits, providing employee training, and remaining current on applicable regulations and industry best practices. By proactively managing compliance risks, organizations can prevent legal and reputational harm while nurturing a culture of ethical and responsible business practices.